Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a deck which could be pretty good, is getting a whole bunch of new tricks, and shouldn't break the bank to actually make. Could be good, nice budget deck. It's a kind of video you guys have been asking for quite regularly, and it is a specific video that multiple people have requested. It's time to take a look at Honchkrow and Weavile. Now, Weavile is, to my mind, one of the most shockingly underused Pokemon we have in the format at the moment. It came around in Burning Shadows, and for a single energy, you've got the attack Rule of Evil. 60 damage to each Pokemon in play that has an ability. That's yours and your opponent's. That is an awful lot of damage, and if you focus on Pokemon that don't have an ability, then all of a sudden, you are crushing with Weavile, and this is incredibly good. And then, of course, you bring in Honchkrow. Honchkrow's got a nice attack for 2 colourless energy, so you can use a double colourless. 10 damage, plus 10 more for each damage counter on all of your opponent's Pokemon. So let's say, for argument's sake, Weavile comes out and hits, 2 Tapu Lele's and an Octillery, or an Oranguru, or something like that. You've then put 180 damage on your opponent's side of the field. The great thing about this is that you might actually be hitting support Pokemon like Tapu Lele and Oranguru. So your opponent isn't going to be getting rid of those. Now, of course, they could play an Ace Roller, but generally these aren't Pokemon with which they're going to be attacking. These Pokemon are going to sit on the bench, and they're going to keep the damage they've got on the bench. So Raven's Claw is going to keep doing 190 damage per turn. And this is if you only hit 3 Pokemon. In theory, now I don't think this is actually going to happen, but you could hit 6 Pokemon with abilities and actually be doing 370 damage for a double colourless energy. And there is nothing in the Pokemon trading card game that can resist a hit like that at the moment. And this really is the basis of the deck, using Weavile to do 60 damage to each Pokemon with an ability, and then using Raven's Claw to take huge KOs. All the way through, you're relying on non-EX, non-GX Pokemon that only give up 1 prize each, while punishing your opponent's 2 prize Pokemon and getting ahead in the prize race. But in Crimson Invasion, there's a third card coming out. Now, I don't think this is needed in the deck, but a card I really like in the deck is Counter Energy. If it's attached to a non-EX, non-GX Pokemon, and you're behind on prizes, because even though you're trading 2 for 1, in the early game, you'll probably go down a prize or 2 while you use Weavile to get energy on the field and you're not taking big KOs. Then Counter Energy is any 2 energy, as long as it's attached to a non-EX, non-GX Pokemon. And what this does is it opens up a huge amount of options. It means that all of a sudden, you can use Honchkrow's Feint Attack to do 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Or it means you can use Weavile's Slash doing 70 damage while hitting for Darkness Weakness. Now, there's not much around at the moment relevant that is weak to darkness, but at some point there might be, and the crucial thing is here, you can put in non-EX, non-GX Pokemon of any description, and Counter Energy will work beautifully in being able to feed their attacks and allowing you to tech for any matchup you want. Scared about grass decks or metal decks? How about just chucking in a non-EX Volcanion and then being able to hit for 100 for free energy? Oh no, wait, sorry, because Counter Energy's a thing. 2 energy. And the great thing is, Weavile hits for colourless energy. Honchkrow hits for colourless energy. You don't need to play any specific kind of energy. So you could always play fire energy if you wanted to use Volcanion, as well as taking advantage of counter energy to essentially bring down the attack cost of all of your Pokemon. And the other thing I really love here is that in the early game, you really want to be using Rule of Evil on a Weavile. So if you go ahead and use a Counter Catcher, you can attach that to Weavile, and it will count, if you're not behind on prizes at least, it will count as 1 colourless energy, which is brilliant, because that's all you need to be using Rule of Evil on a Weavile. Sounds like fun. Now, the good news is these are not the only Pokemon. These are the core of the deck, but there's a whole bunch of other options, the first of which is Tapu Koko. See, the thing is that one of the huge downsides of Weavile is that it only hits Pokemon with abilities. So you focus on Pokemon like Honchkrow and Weavile that don't have abilities. But if your opponent's chucking out a bunch of non-ability Pokemon, you are in a little bit of a predicament. So how about the non-GX Tapu Koko? Double colourless energy, which you'll be playing anyway for Honchkrow, 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. A nice way to spread damage around if your opponent is not relying on abilities. But one of the other options we've got, and this is a standard thing in the Pokemon trading card game now, if you are spreading damage around in any way, shape or form, whether it's in Decidueye or a deck like this, you need an option to devolve, and the best one has been for a long time and continues to be Espeon EX. One colourless energy, meaning that even though it's an EX Pokemon, you could still use counter energy if it was the only energy you had in your hand. Miraculous Shine, devolve each of your opponent's evolved Pokemon, and put the higher stage evolution card on it into your opponent's hand. So if you hit something like a Gardevoir for 60 damage, and then you devolve it down to a Routes because it evolved using Rare Candy, then you get to take a KO. And this, of course, is crucial, because a benched Gardevoir, because it in the active will have resistance, will take 60 damage from Rule of Evil, then Espeon devolves it to a Routes, and it gets KO'd. The other option you've got for devolving is Porygon Z. Problem is, you're already using a bunch of evolutions anyway. Porygon Z is a stage 2. I love Porygon Z. He's one of my favourite Pokemon. He's my boy. But also, I love the fact that it doesn't take your attack. Problem is, it's a stage 2. And you can't drop it as a surprise. If you drop a Porygon down, your opponent can just Guzma and KO it. Little bit awkward, don't love it. I do believe Espeon is the better option. And of course, it doesn't have an ability, so it won't be taking damage from Rule of Evil. And while we're spreading damage around, might I suggest Potown? Now, I know that Potown is a bit awkward because you're playing evolution decks, and then every Pokemon that evolves takes 30 damage, but you can still get your opponent's Pokemon as well, and the key is that you're playing a spread deck, your opponent isn't. And let's face it, Weavile's got 90 HP. If it goes down to 60, that's not a huge difference. How about Necrozma? Now, you need a GX attack anyway, because, you know, GX attacks are great. You don't have a better GX attack. How about just using Black Ray? Free energy, but you can use a double colourless, and you're playing that anyway. 100 damage to all of your opponent's Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX. You're spreading damage around anyway. If you can hit, say, 3 GXs with Black Ray, then all of a sudden Honchkrow's doing 310 damage. And then you KO one of them, your opponent's still got 200 damage on the field. You're then doing 210 damage. With a choice band, that goes up to 240. That will KO most things nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great way of getting damage on the field before you come in and do a bit of damage with Honchkrow. You can even chuck some kind of starter Pokemon in there. Maybe you play Metal Energy and Registeel be hitting for weakness against stuff like Routes and Alolan Vulpix. Get some energy on the field, take some early prizes, and then start spreading around when you've got your Weavile evolved. Or maybe something like Buzzwole. You can be playing fighting energy here because you're relying on double colourless. If you're playing counter energy, I wouldn't suggest strong energy. I would go either or. The thing is, strong energy cannot be attached to a Weavile, so if the only energy you've got in your hand is strong energy, you can't use Rule of Evil. That could be an issue. But Buzzwole does 30 to the active, 30 to the bench. This is a deck that revolves around popping energy around the field, so maybe Buzzwole comes in and helps you. And then, of course, maybe the best option is a card that hasn't even been released yet, and that is the promo Tapu Lele. Like I've said, we don't need any specific energy, so let's just play Psychic Energy and play the Psychic Tapu Lele, the promo. For 2 energy, move any number of damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon in any way that you like. Oh, wait a minute! This is a non-EX, non-GX Pokemon, so if you're behind on prizes, counter energy will work here beautifully. You pop it down, You immediately attach a counter energy, you can drop it as a complete surprise, and let's say you've got 300 damage on your opponent's side of the field, you can then move it around to take multiple KOs. Or maybe you move it around so a Black Ray GX will sweep the game next turn, or a Rule of Evil will sweep the game next turn. Tapu Lele is phenomenal in a deck like this, and it's coming out very soon. I cannot tell you that this will be the best deck in the history of the world ever, but I can tell you that if you can get this working, there is an awful lot of potential here. Something like Counter Energy gives you options. I mentioned Tapu Koko earlier. Well, all of a sudden, Counter Energy gives you a legitimate lightning type attacker, and then you're hitting stuff like Ho-Oh for weakness and getting a one-hit KO, while being able to use the attack of the non-GX Tapu Lele, while being able to use Slash on something like a Weavile, and all the time here you're just playing Counter Energy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the utter beauty of a deck like this. It's got options, it's techable, and to be honest, if you can get off a couple Rule of Evils and then bring in something like a Honchkrow or a Tapu Lele or an Necrozma, that could be game right there. But as always, I want to know what you think. Chuck it down in the comment section. How do you feel about this deck? Are there any other Pokemon that you think would fit in here that I haven't mentioned? Do you think it's a great deck? Is it a good budget deck? Am I overhyping it? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but remember the rule. Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where the live action happens. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., there's a new one coming this weekend. You can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.